With the recent abysmal failure of The Flash at the box office, I think it's a good time to take a nostalgic look back at the box office bombs of the first half of 2023. Now, there have been a heck of a lot of films that tanked at the box office this year so far, with some surprises and some so unsurprising it makes you wonder why studios even bothered releasing them. In this video, we look at the top 7 box office bombs from January to June 2023. Now, we are basing this list off the film's budget and the box office it returned. A quick budget explainer before we begin. The rule of thumb is that a film needs to make double its production budget to account for marketing and distribution costs. Marketing meaning, well, adverts and press tours, and distribution meaning the cut of the ticket that the cinema gets. So if a film has a production budget of 100 million, it needs to make 200 million at the box office to begin making a profit. With that out of the way, let's get straight into it. Number 7. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
So, what's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
Kicking off Phase 5 of the MCU, Quantumania did rather poorly critically and financially. There were many factors as to why Quantumania failed, such as the poor visuals, not having the charm of the previous Ant-Man films, and taking place in a confusing and stake-reducing multiverse. Factors outside the movie that perhaps affected its box office was a substandard Marvel Phase 4, with movies such as The Eternals, Thor: Love and Thunder, and Black Widow, on top of the countless MCU Disney Plus shows. Many were just bored of the MCU and its increase in quantity, but reduction in quality. Quantumania had a budget of $200 million, and when doubled for marketing and distribution, the total budget was $400 million. Quantumania made $463 million at the box office, giving it a paltry $63 million. Considering Ant-Man 1 made $518 million, and Ant-Man 2 made over $600, both on much smaller budgets, it's fair to say Quantumania was the first major bomb of 2023. Number 6. Fast 10.
And yet here you are, building this magnificent family.
Considering a box office return of over 700 million, surely the 10th Fast and Furious film was a financial success. While Fast X is the first example of many on this list, where a massive production budget inhibits a film's chance of making a profit. Fast X suffered from all the same flaws of the last, let's be kind and say 5 Fast and Furious films. It was completely dumb, utterly unbelievable, with gravity-defying stunts, and it's all about family, being said at least 5 times by the charisma vacuum Vin Diesel.
You will never be able to break my family.
Fast X received pretty much the same box office return that its predecessor, Fast and Furious 9, received. But Fast 10's aforementioned massive budget, which was 70% more than Fast and Furious 9, is what made it a bomb, costing $340 million, which is the 5th highest budget of all time. Double it for marketing and distribution, and the total budget comes to a ridiculous $680 million. Fast X made $712 million at the box office, so a net profit of just $32 million. Number 5. The Little Mermaid.
He's a human. You're a mermaid.
That doesn't make us enemies.
Now, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the live-action Little Mermaid remake, primarily around the casting of a brown-haired black woman as a red-haired white woman, Ariel. Now, the box office performance of The Little Mermaid was okay domestically, but very poor internationally. This led to media outlets, Disney representatives, and Little Mermaid fans pointing to Asian countries, saying that they are racist for not watching the film, which is never a good marketing strategy. Did international audiences turn away from watching The Little Mermaid because of its politically correct version of the classic fairy tale? Possibly to some extent. But the film itself had many issues, such as the very blurry and bland looking underwater CGI and an extended runtime, which was almost double the length of the original 1989 classic. The Little Mermaid had a budget of $250 million, double for marketing and distribution, giving a total budget of $500 million. And it made $505 million at the box office, with a few more screenings before the end of its theatrical run, The Little Mermaid will scrape a profit of a few million. Now, when compared to other Disney live-action remakes, The Little Mermaid is a serious failure. The Lion King live-action remake made $1.6 billion, Aladdin over $1 billion, and Beauty and the Beast made $1.2 billion. So it's fair to say that The Little Mermaid didn't reach anywhere near the box office return that Disney were hoping for. Number 4, 65.
We've crash landed on an uncharted celestial body.
The Adam Driver sci-fi dinosaur movie that came out between Creed 3, Scream 6, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. More on that film later. The film is set in 65 million BC during the asteroid shower that ended the dinosaurs. Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt have to face off against dinosaurs and asteroids as they try to escape prehistoric Earth. Basically, the plot is an excuse to have Adam Driver fight dinosaurs with guns and sci-fi tech. The film received tepid reviews, and although I found it enjoyable and refreshingly short and contained with a 90-minute runtime, it did feel like a straight to Netflix or Amazon Prime movie. If we look at why 65 bombed, perhaps the name of the film 65, which feels like an incomplete title and certainly doesn't entice audiences, or the fact that there was little to no marketing for the film, or maybe that it's a dinosaur flick, coming at least 20 years after dinosaur movies were in fashion. 65 had a budget of $45 million, doubled for marketing and distribution, comes to $90 million, and it made $56 million at the box office, so a loss of $34 million. Number 3, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Truth be told, we helped the wrong person steal the wrong thing.
A fun take on the popular role-playing game, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves had a solid cast consisting of Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, and Hugh Grant. Honor Among Thieves had a funny, tongue-in-cheek tone, great chemistry between the cast, and was faithful to the D&D game, whilst also being accessible to audiences that have never heard of D&D before. So why did it flop at the box office? Well, poor marketing and stiff competition, as well as a larger budget than it really needed to have, destroyed its chances of making a profit. John Wick 4 came out a week earlier to fantastic reviews from critics and audiences alike, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the highest grossing film of the year, came out a week after Dungeons & Dragons, and both movies snatched up many who would have otherwise watched Honor Among Thieves. The marketing was pretty poor too, with generic movie trailers that didn't portray the charm of the movie very well. And perhaps the movie in itself was too niche, as the D&D name can lead to presumptions for many of the movie-going public, who may only know D&D as that weird game that nerds play, and viewed the film as being for that audience, rather than what it turned out to be, which was a swashbuckling fantasy film that could be enjoyed by D&D fans and non-fans alike. Honor Among Thieves had a budget of $150 million, make that $300 million with marketing and distribution costs. And with a box office of $207 million, it made a loss of $93 million, which I find to be a real shame, as out of all of the movies on this list, I enjoyed D&D the most. Number 2, Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
It's all about
The only surprise is that Fury of the Gods comes in second place and not first. It was very well publicised that Shazam 2 tanked at the box office, so much so that a weird feud between lead actor Zachary Levi and Dwayne Johnson arose. The Rock played the DCEU character and Shazam's archenemy, Black Adam, and was accused by Levi of preventing certain actors that were in his Black Adam film from being in Shazam 2. Shazam! Fury of the Gods was not a bad film. It had its flaws, but possibly more than any other film on this list, it suffered from factors outside the film itself. Shazam is part of the DCEU, and before its release, James Gunn announced that the DCEU would end, and he would restart the DC Cinematic Universe. Also, the 3 previous films in the DCEU made a loss at the box office: Wonder Woman 1984, The Suicide Squad, and Black Adam. So Shazam suffered greatly from being inside the walking corpse of the DCEU. Shazam is also a character that most of the public don't know. and after the original Shazam received a fairly good reception, Warner Bros. Seemingly learnt all the wrong lessons from the original's moderate success. They moved away from the smaller stakes, emotional feel of the original, and almost doubled the production budget for Fury of the Gods. With a budget of $125 million, double for marketing and distribution, and it only received $132 million at the box office, resulting in a colossal net loss of $118 million. Before revealing the number one, here's a few honourable mentions that have yet to conclude their theatrical run, so their box office results aren't final yet. The first honourable mention is Pixar's Elemental. The once great animation studio that brought us Finding Nemo, Toy Story, and The Incredibles have turned out some real financial failures in the last 2 years, with Elemental being the most recent one. The film had a huge budget of $200 million, and over 2 weeks into its theatrical run, it's made $140 million. Perhaps it'll make $2 million in total, but it's another indisputable bomb for Pixar. The Flash. Suffering from the same issues that affected Shazam: Fury of the Gods, plus the film's lead actor, Ezra Miller, seemingly trying to become one of Hollywood's most hated actors. The Flash has appalling CGI, a weird marketing strategy, and received reviews that focused more on Ezra Miller's antics than the film itself. The Flash had a budget of $200 million, and has so far made $220 million at the box office, with the highest second-week decline of any film in the DCEU released outside of COVID. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The fifth film in the Indiana Jones franchise, with Harrison Ford for the last time, hopefully, donning his fedora and whip. Dial of Destiny looks like it will be a huge flop for Lucasfilm, with little enthusiasm for another Indiana Jones film and many commenting on the unlikability of co-lead Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the sheer age of Harrison Ford. Critics who got to see the film early at the Cannes Film Festival gave bad to okay reviews at best, and after its opening weekend hitting around 60 million, the same number as The Flash's opening weekend, Dial of Destiny is destined to be a bomb, chiefly due to its incredibly high production budget of $300 million. Dial of Destiny will definitely make a loss. It's just by how much. And now, on to the number one. The biggest box office bomb for the first half of 2023 is Renfield. What's Renfield, you might ask? Well, it's a horror comedy with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult that came out on April the 13th, releasing only a few weeks after Super Mario and on the same day as The Pope's Exorcist, which undoubtedly took many horror fans away from Renfield. The film's biggest issue, which made it the number one box office bomb so far this year, was its extortionate budget. Most horror films normally have a modest budget of 15 to 40 million, allowing them to only require a moderately successful theatrical run to make a profit. The Pope's Exorcist, for example, had a budget of 18 million and made that back within its first week. Renfield, on the other hand, had a budget of 86 million. Double it for marketing and distribution and you get a total budget of $172 million. And how much did Renfield make at the box office? $26 million, leaving it at a loss of $146 million. So rather appropriately, Renfield concludes the list with the same issue that has plagued many films this year, an out-of-control budget. Did you enjoy any of these films despite a box office failure? And were any of these films' financial results a surprise to you? Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We cover all the best films and shows every week, as well as the box office results of the major movie franchises.